The moon goddess did not strike her with lightning. She whispered her sentence, "Die alone." And with those words, the sin that shook the heavens was born. Seraphim was never meant to exist. Born a gentle giant girl with moon-touched blood, her towering form terrified the Pax, her glowing aura branded a curse. They called her imbalance, an abomination, a mistake the gods would one day erase. Yet Seraphim's heart was softer than the snow she would later bleed upon. When wolf children lay dying, abandoned by fate and forbidden by divine law, she chose mercy over obedience, and that choice became her sin. The moon goddess judged her without anger, without mercy. Seraphim was stripped of protection, declared an unnatural force, and cast from the sacred skies. The gods did not push her, they simply let her fall. Through frozen clouds and shattered light, Seraphim plunged into the frozen wastes, her divine power fading with every breath, her body breaking against a land that waited for her death. But fate had other plans. Far below, Alpha King Gomez, ruler of the Northern Territory, was losing a battle no warrior could fight. Feared by enemies and respected by his pack, the Alpha was slowly dying from an ancient curse that ate away at his wolf. Healers had failed. Rituals had failed. Prophecies whispered only one truth: only forgotten power can restore the crown. And then, he felt it. A massive, unfamiliar aura crashing into his land like a fallen star. When Gomez found her, half buried in snow, unmoving and colossal, he thought she was a mountain torn from the sky. But when Seraphim opened her eyes, glowing with sorrow and defiance, the Alpha felt something ancient stir. She expected chains, execution, death. Instead, she met the gaze of a man who saw power where others saw a curse. A forbidden bond flickered, faded, dangerous, undeniable. Seraphim revealed the truth she feared most. Her gift was life-binding moon healing, a power so absolute it rewrote fate itself. When her hand touched Gomez, his wolf screamed, fought, then stabilized. Stronger. Alive. The Alpha realized the truth the moon goddess had hidden. Seraphim was not cast out for weakness, but because her power rivaled the gods. Against tradition, against divine law, Gomez chose her. He knelt not to the moon goddess, but to the cursed giant girl the heavens rejected. Declaring her under Alpha protection shattered the pack. A giant Luna? A divine exile? A sin walking beside the throne? Yet as Seraphim healed Gomez at the cost of her own strength, love bloomed where fear once lived, a romance born of rebellion, sacrifice, and fate. Too late, the moon goddess felt it. Her greatest weapon was no longer hers. Gomez rose stronger than any Alpha before him. Seraphim's power awakened beyond divine limits. The balance of heaven cracked. And as divine wrath began to descend, one truth echoed through the realms. She was cast out to die, but she rose as the power that could end a goddess. The moon goddess did not strike Seraphim with lightning. She whispered her sentence, "Die alone." Seraphim knelt in the sacred grove, her massive frame dwarfing the ancient stone altar before her. At 12 feet tall, she had learned to make herself small in the presence of others, to fold inward like a wounded bird. But here, beneath the silver gaze of the celestial witness above, there was no hiding what she was. The elders formed a circle around her, their faces carved from judgment and fear. Elder Morvain stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of divine authority. Seraphim of the moon bloodline, you stand accused of defying the natural order. Do you deny that you used your sacred gift to heal the wolf children beyond the veil? She did not deny it. How could she? 3 days ago, she had found them in the shadow woods, their small bodies broken from a rockslide, their mother dead beside them. The youngest could not have been more than 6 weeks old. They were dying, and the natural order demanded she let them pass. They were children, Seraphim said, her voice gentle despite her size. I could hear their hearts failing. They were beasts, Morvain spat. Cursed ones, touched by darkness. The moon goddess separated our kinds for a reason. The balance must be maintained. Seraphim had been born with moon-touched blood, a gift that appeared once in a generation. Her healing hands could mend bone and flesh, could draw poison from wounds, could pull the dying back from the threshold. But such power came with divine law. Never heal that which the goddess has deemed unworthy. Never blur the lines between the blessed and the cursed. The wolf children had not seemed cursed to her. They had seemed afraid. The goddess speaks through balance, Elder Theron added, his ancient eyes studying her with something that might have been pity. You tower over us, child. Even among the moon-touched, you are an aberration. Some whispered you were blessed with greatness. Others called you monstrous. Seraphim had heard both words her entire life. At birth, the midwives had gasped at her size. By age 5, she stood taller than grown men. By 10, she had to duck through doorways and sleep in the stables because no bed could hold her. The village children called her giant and freak. Their parents called her goddess-marked and left offerings at her door, though they never met her eyes. She had tried to be gentle. She had tried to be good. She had spent her life healing their sick, mending their broken, asking for nothing in return. She thought if she could prove her heart was pure, they would see past her size, past their fear. Then she saved the wolves, and everything shattered. The moon goddess has spoken, Morvain announced, raising his staff. The moonlight seemed to gather around him, cold and merciless. She does not strike you down, for even in your transgression, you acted from the heart. But you have upset the balance, Seraphim. You have proven that you cannot be trusted with divine power. The other elders began to chant, their voices weaving through the night air. Seraphim felt something shift in her chest, a sudden absence where warmth had always lived. The moon-touched blood was her connection to the goddess, her lifeline to the divine. It was the only thing that had ever made her feel like she belonged to something greater than her cursed size. From this moment, you are severed from the goddess's protection, Morvain continued. Your healing gift is stripped. Your blood runs common. You are no longer moon-touched. Seraphim gasped as the power left her. It felt like drowning, like falling, like watching the sun set for the final time. Her hands, which had glowed silver when she healed, now looked painfully ordinary in the moonlight. And, because you chose beasts over your own kind, Morvain said, his voice dropping to something cruel, the goddess decrees you shall never again know the comfort of companionship. You will walk alone. You will die alone. Perhaps then you will understand the gravity of balance. The words settled over her like a shroud. Around the circle, she saw relief in their faces. Relief that the giant girl, the too large reminder of their own mortality, would finally be gone. You have until dawn to leave, Elder Theron said quietly. Take nothing but what you can carry. Speak to no one. If you are seen within our borders again, the punishment will be death. They left her there, kneeling in the grove, suddenly powerless and profoundly alone. Seraphim rose slowly, her massive frame casting long shadows in the moonlight. She looked up at the celestial body that had once been her patron, her guide, her mother in all the ways that mattered. The moon goddess stared back, silent and cold. I would do it again, Seraphim whispered to the uncaring sky. They were children. The moon offered no response. It never would again. As she walked toward the village for the last time, Seraphim understood the true cruelty of her sentence. The goddess had not killed her. She had done something far worse. She had ensured that Seraphim would live every remaining day knowing she was too large for the world, too gentle for its cruelty, and too cursed to ever stop caring. Die alone, the goddess had decreed. Chapter 2 Cast from the sky. They didn't push her. The gods simply let her fall. Seraphim walked through the night, her belongings tied in a rough cloth sack that looked child-sized against her frame. The village had been silent as she passed through it one final time. Doors bolted. Windows shuttered. As if her mere presence might contaminate them with her sin. Only one person had watched her leave. Old Mira, the baker's widow, stood in her doorway with tears streaming down her weathered face. Seraphim had healed her grandson last winter when fever nearly claimed him. Mira said nothing, but she pressed her wrinkled hand to her heart in a gesture of gratitude that words could not carry. It was the only kindness Seraphim would receive. By the time she reached the boundary stones that marked the edge of the sacred lands, dawn was breaking cold and merciless across the horizon. Beyond the stones lay the frozen wastes, a wilderness so brutal that even the bravest hunters refused to venture deep into its heart. Seraphim stepped over the threshold. The change was immediate. The air turned sharp as broken glass in her lungs. The ground beneath her feet shifted from soft earth to permafrost that cracked under her weight. Behind her, the sacred lands remained green and alive, protected by divine blessing. Before her stretched nothing but white desolation and jagged ice formations that rose like the bones of dead giants. She walked until the sun climbed high and cold, until her legs trembled with exhaustion, until the sacred lands disappeared completely behind veils of snow. She had no destination. The sentence was exile, and exile meant anywhere that was not home. By midday, the first wound opened. A jagged outcropping of ice she hadn't seen beneath the snow caught her leg, tearing through fabric and flesh. Blood, red and painfully mortal, spilled onto the white ground. Seraphim stared at it, remembering when her blood had run silver with divine power. She pressed her hand to the wound, instinct taking over. For a moment, the faintest warmth flickered in her palm, a ghost of what she had been. The bleeding slowed but did not stop. Her power was fading, draining away like water through cupped fingers. "Please," she whispered to gods who would not listen. "I only wanted to help them." The wind answered with howling indifference. She walked on because there was nothing else to do. Her leg throbbed with each step, leaving a trail of blood drops like breadcrumbs through the snow. The cold gnawed at her bones. Her breath came in ragged clouds. She had always been large, always been strong, but even her size could not fight the frozen wastes forever. When the second wound came, it was her own fault. She stumbled over hidden ice, and her massive frame came down hard on her arm. She heard the bone crack before she felt the pain, a sound like a tree branch snapping in winter. The agony followed a heartbeat later, white-hot and blinding. Seraphim cried out, the sound swallowed immediately by the vastness around her. She tried again to heal herself, pressing her good hand to the break, willing the divine power to return. This time, nothing happened. Not even a flicker. Not even a whisper of warmth. The moon-touched blood was truly gone. She dragged herself forward on her knees, her broken arm cradled against her chest, her wounded leg painting the snow crimson. The cold was inside her now, settling into her marrow, making her thoughts slow and thick. She did not know how far she had traveled or how long she had been walking. Time had become meaningless in the white void. When she finally collapsed, it was not dramatic. She simply could not take another step. Her body folded into the snow, and the cold welcomed her like an old friend. She lay there, staring up at the colorless sky, and waited for death. This was the goddess's true punishment, she realized. Not exile, not loneliness, but this, dying slowly in a frozen wasteland, with no one to witness, no one to remember, no one to mourn. She would become another forgotten tragedy, another cautionary tale whispered around fires, the giant girl who defied the gods and paid the price. "I'm sorry," she breathed to the wolf children she had saved. "I hope you're still alive. I hope it was worth it." Her eyes began to close. The cold was almost comfortable now, a lullaby sung in ice and wind. She thought she could hear something in the distance, a sound like thunder or drums, but it was probably just her failing heart. The sound grew louder. Closer. Not thunder. Not drums. Footsteps. Seraphim tried to lift her head, but her body would not obey. She managed only to turn her face slightly, enough to see shapes emerging from the swirling snow. Large shapes. Moving with purpose and speed. Wolves. Not the children she had saved, but massive creatures with fur like midnight and eyes that gleamed with intelligence beyond animal cunning. They circled her fallen form, studying her with an intensity that should have frightened her. But Seraphim was beyond fear. She was beyond everything except the cold. The largest wolf stepped forward, its shoulder reaching her chest even as she lay in the snow. It was enormous, easily the size of a horse, with a coat that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The wolf lowered its massive head and sniffed her broken arm, her bleeding leg, the places where mortality was claiming her piece by piece. Then it did something unexpected. It sat down beside her and tilted its head back, releasing a howl that shook the air itself. The other wolves joined in, their voices weaving together into a song that seemed to reach beyond the frozen wastes, beyond the physical world, into something older and darker. They were calling someone. Seraphim felt consciousness slipping away, but through the haze of approaching death, she heard new sounds. More footsteps. Voices. Commands given in a language that resonated in her bones. Strong hands lifted her, impossibly gentle despite her size. Someone spoke, their voice deep and carrying an authority that made even the wolves fall silent. Bring her to the stronghold. Carefully. She's barely alive. My lord, another voice protested. She's enormous. She bears no pack scent, and she bleeds like prey. She could be dangerous. She's dying in my territory, the first voice replied, cold as the wastes themselves. That makes her my concern. Move. Seraphim wanted to see who spoke with such command, wanted to understand what was happening, but the darkness was too strong. She surrendered to it, her last conscious thought a strange one. The gods had let her fall. But someone had caught her. Seraphim intended to prove her wrong. Chapter 3. The Dying Alpha King. The Alpha King was feared by all, except death. Gomez stood at the northern window of his stronghold, watching the frozen wastes stretch endlessly into the horizon. His massive frame cast shadows that swallowed the firelight behind him. At 7 feet tall, he was a giant among wolves, a warrior who had unified the scattered packs through blood and iron will. His presence alone could silence a room. His word was law across territories that spanned beyond mapping. But law and will could not heal what was rotting inside him. He pressed his hand against his chest, feeling the wound that no one else could see. It sat beneath his ribs, a darkness that had taken root 3 years ago when the Shadow Mage's curse found its mark. The mage was dead now, torn apart by Gomez's jaws in the battle that followed. But curses had a way of outliving their creators. My lord, you should rest, said Thane, his second in command, from the doorway. The younger wolf's voice carried concern wrapped in careful neutrality. No one dared show pity to the Alpha King. I don't need rest, Gomez replied, his voice a low rumble. I need answers. He turned from the window and Thane flinched. It was subtle, barely perceptible, but Gomez saw it. They all flinched now, even his most loyal warriors. Because they could see what he could feel. His wolf was dying. The beast that lived beneath his skin, the primal force that made him alpha, was weakening day by day. Where once his wolf had been a constant presence, a source of strength and instinct, now there were only brief flickers. Soon there would be nothing, and a wolf without his beast was just a man. A man could not rule the packs. The healers returned this morning, Thane said carefully. They traveled to the eastern sanctuaries as you commanded. And? Nothing. The moon priests say the curse is beyond their knowledge. The blood witches claim it's too deeply rooted. Even the ancient ones who speak to spirits, they all say the same thing. Thane hesitated. They say you're already dead. You just haven't stopped moving yet. Gomez's eyes flashed gold, a brief surge of the wolf inside him. Thane stepped back instinctively. Then I suppose I'll keep moving until I fall, Gomez said coldly. Tell the healers they're dismissed. I'm done wasting time on their failures. He moved to the war table that dominated the center of his chamber, studying the maps spread across its surface. Territory markers. Pack boundaries. Resources. Everything he had built, everything he had fought for, would collapse when he died. The packs respected strength above all else, and a dying alpha was weakness incarnate. Already he could feel the vultures circling. Maddox from the western territories, always hungry for power. Vera from the south, ambitious and calculating. They would tear his kingdom apart, return the Pax to the fractured chaos he had spent decades ending. Unless the prophecy was real. Gomez traced his finger across the map to the sacred grove where the oracle lived, an ancient wolf woman who spoke in riddles and smoke. He had visited her a month ago, desperate enough to seek answers from magic he did not trust. She had looked at him with eyes that saw through flesh and time, and spoken words that haunted him still. Only the forgotten power will restore the crown. Seek not among the strong, but among the broken. The one who falls from grace shall lift you from death. Riddles. Always riddles. Gomez had sent scouts to every corner of his territory, searching for anyone with unusual power, anyone who might fit the cryptic description. They found nothing. No forgotten healers, no hidden mages, no convenient salvation. The darkness in his chest pulsed, a reminder that time was running out. "My lord," Thane interrupted again, and this time his voice carried urgency. "The Northern Patrol has returned. They report something unusual." Gomez looked up. "Speak plainly." "They found someone in the frozen wastes. A woman. She's massive, larger than any wolf they've encountered. She was near death when they found her, broken and bleeding." Thane paused. "They say her presence felt wrong. Not threatening, but different. Like she doesn't belong to any pack or territory they know." Something stirred in Gomez's chest, and for once it was not the curse. It was instinct, the faint whisper of his dying wolf raising its head in interest. "Where is she now?" "Being brought to the stronghold. Captain Riker insisted on bringing her personally," he said. Thane struggled with the words. "He said it felt important. That you needed to see her." Gomez moved toward the door, his long strides eating up the distance. Thane hurried to follow. "My lord, should we prepare the healers? Set up a containment area? We know nothing about her. If Riker brought her directly to me instead of the outer wards, he believes she's no threat," Gomez said. "And if his instincts are that strong, I want to see why." They descended the stronghold's spiral stairs, past guards who straightened at their alpha's approach, past the great hall where pack members gathered and fell silent as he passed. Gomez felt their eyes on him, searching for signs of weakness, measuring how much longer he would last. The main doors opened onto the courtyard, where a group of wolves in human form were carefully carrying an enormous figure on a reinforced stretcher. Even unconscious and broken, she was impressive. 12 feet at least, with a frame that spoke of gentle strength rather than warrior brutality. Her dark hair was matted with snow and blood. Her face, even slack with unconsciousness, held a softness that seemed foreign in the harsh north. But it was not her size that made Gomez's breath catch. It was the aura. Even weakened, even dying, she radiated something that made his wolf surge to sudden, desperate life inside him. Not power, exactly. Not magic in the way he understood it. But something ancient. Something that called to the curse in his chest like a key seeking its lock. "Set her down," Gomez commanded, moving closer. Carefully. Riker stepped forward, bowing his head in respect. "My lord, we found her collapsed near the boundary. She bears no pack scent, no divine protection, nothing that identifies her origin. But the moment we approached, I felt. I can't explain it. It was like finding something we didn't know we were looking for." Gomez knelt beside the giant woman, studying her with an intensity that made his warriors exchange glances. Her breathing was shallow, her wounds severe. She would be dead by morning without intervention. "Only the forgotten power will restore the crown," he murmured, remembering the oracle's words. "Seek not among the strong, but among the broken." This woman was certainly broken. But was she the forgotten power? There was only one way to find out. "Take her to the healing chambers," Gomez ordered, rising. "Postguards. No one enters without my permission. Bring the best healers we have. I want her alive." "My lord," Thane said quietly, "if she dies despite our efforts, the Pax will see it as a bad omen. A waste of resources on an outsider while yourself." "Then she will not die," Gomez interrupted, his voice carrying the absolute authority that had made him king. "That is not a hope, Thane. That is a command." He looked down at the unconscious woman one more time, at this strange creature who had fallen from nowhere into his territory, into his life, at the exact moment when he had run out of options. The gods had a twisted sense of timing. "Find out who she is," Gomez said. "Find out what she is. And find out why my wolf, for the first time in months, feels like it wants to live." Chapter 4. The Giant Girl in the Snow. When Gomez found her, he thought she was a fallen mountain. The healing chambers of the stronghold had been built to accommodate wolves in all their forms, spacious enough for the largest warriors to shift and move freely. Yet even these generous quarters seemed insufficient as his healers worked frantically around Seraphim's unconscious form. Gomez stood in the doorway, watching. He had intended only to check on her condition, to satisfy the strange pull that had gnawed at him since she arrived. But he found himself unable to leave. "The leg wound is deep but clean," Mara, his head healer, reported without looking up. "The arm was broken but has been set. She has frost damage, dehydration, and exhaustion so severe I'm surprised she made it as far as she did." She paused, her weathered hands hovering over Seraphim's chest. "But there's something else, my lord. Something I cannot identify." "Explain." "Her body is shutting down in the way one expects from exposure and injury. But there's an absence inside her, like something vital was torn away recently. It's as if she was once filled with light, and now there's only an echo." Mara finally met his eyes. "She feels hollowed out." Gomez moved closer, his wolf stirring with that same inexplicable interest. In the better light of the healing chambers, he could see Seraphim more clearly. Her face was beautiful in its gentleness, features that suggested kindness rather than the hardness survival usually carved into those who lived in harsh lands. Her hands, even massive as they were, showed calluses consistent with healing work, not warfare. She did not look like someone who belonged in the frozen wastes. "Can you save her?" he asked. "I believe so, my lord. But she will need time to recover." Mara hesitated. "May I ask why you care?" "She is no one to us. No pack, no purpose, no." "She is in my territory," Gomez said, his voice carrying a warning. "That makes her my responsibility." It was a lie, and they both knew it. But Mara was wise enough not to press further. The curse in Gomez's chest pulsed, and for a moment the pain was so intense he had to grip the doorframe to remain standing. His wolf whimpered, a sound of weakness he despised. But then that strange pull from Seraphim intensified, and the pain eased, just slightly. Just enough. "Leave us," he said suddenly. Mara stood, confused. "My lord, she needs. Leave us. Return in an hour." The healer recognized the tone of absolute command and bowed before departing, ushering her assistants out with her. The door closed with a heavy finality, leaving Gomez alone with the unconscious giant. He approached slowly, studying her with the intensity of a predator assessing prey. Except she was not prey. His wolf knew it with a certainty that defied logic. This woman, broken and powerless, was somehow important. Somehow necessary. Gomez knelt beside her, close enough to see the faint rise and fall of her breathing, close enough to catch her scent. It was wrong for someone from the frozen north, carrying notes of moonflower and sacred herbs, things that only grew in blessed lands. Yet underneath was something else, something raw and mortal, as if divinity had been stripped away and left only humanity behind. "Who are you?" he murmured. As if in answer to his voice, Seraphim's eyes opened. For a moment, neither of them moved. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, gray and deep, filled with a pain that transcended physical injury. She stared at him with the confusion of someone waking from death's doorstep, trying to understand if this was the afterlife or something stranger still. Then recognition flickered across her face. Not of him specifically, but of what he was. "Wolf," she whispered, her voice rough from disuse. "Alpha," he corrected, watching her carefully for signs of fear. Instead, she closed her eyes briefly, and when she opened them again, there was only resignation. "Then make it quick. I'm tired of hurting." The request stunned him. She thought he intended to kill her. She was expecting execution, accepting it with a calmness that spoke of someone who had already lost everything. "I have no intention of killing you," Gomez said. She studied his face, searching for deception. "Then why am I here? Why did you save me?" "I don't know yet." The honesty of it seemed to surprise her more than any comforting lie would have. She tried to sit up, then gasped as pain lanced through her broken arm. Gomez reached out instinctively to steady her, his hand wrapping around her shoulder. The moment they touched, something happened. It was like lightning without the destruction, like fire without the burning. A connection sparked between them, primal and undeniable, that made his wolf surge to full consciousness for the first time in months. The curse in his chest recoiled, driven back by whatever power hummed in the space where their skin met. Seraphim felt it too. Her eyes widened, her breath catching in a way that had nothing to do with pain. "What?" she began, but couldn't finish. Gomez pulled his hand back quickly, but the sensation lingered. His heart pounded with a vitality he had thought lost forever. His wolf prowled beneath his skin, alert and alive, drinking in her presence like water after drought. "Fated mate." The words echoed in his mind with absolute certainty. The bond that wolves spent lifetimes searching for, the connection that transcended logic and choice, that bound two souls together with unbreakable threads. No, it was impossible. Fated mates were rare, appearing perhaps once in a generation. And they never crossed species. Wolves mated with wolves. Humans with humans. The divine order did not allow for. But she was not entirely human, was she? That hollow place Mara had sensed, that absence of light, suggested something had been taken from her. Something divine. "Who are you?" Gomez asked again, this time with urgency. Seraphim wrapped her good arm around herself, a protective gesture that made her seem smaller despite her size. "Nobody. I'm nobody now. You're lying." "I'm cursed," she said, meeting his eyes with fierce defiance. "I was cast out by the moon goddess herself, stripped of my gifts, exiled to die alone. So if you're looking for someone important, someone useful, you've wasted your mercy on the wrong person." "The moon goddess," Gomez repeated slowly. "You were moon-touched." She flinched at the past tense. "I was. I healed people. I helped them. And when I saved dying children, she decided I was an abomination." Her voice cracked. "So she took everything from me and threw me away." The pieces were falling into place. A healer blessed by the moon. Exiled for mercy. Hollowed out by divine punishment. And somehow, impossibly, tied to him by a bond that should not exist. "Only the forgotten power will restore the crown," Gomez murmured, remembering the oracle's prophecy. "What?" He looked at her, this broken giant girl who had fallen into his territory at the exact moment when he had exhausted all other options. This woman whose mere touch had driven back a curse that a dozen healers could not affect. This impossible, inexplicable answer to a prayer he had not known to speak. "You said you were cursed to die alone," Gomez said carefully. "What if I told you I'm dying too? What if I told you the most powerful healers in the north have failed to save me? What if I told you that the moment you entered my territory, my wolf woke up for the first time in months?" Seraphim stared at him with an expression caught between disbelief and something that might have been hope. "I don't have any power left. I can't help you. I can't help anyone." "Perhaps." Gomez stood, looking down at her with an intensity that made her breath quicken. "Or perhaps the goddess stripped your power knowing you would find your way here. Knowing you would find me." "That's insane." "Yes," he agreed. "But I'm dying and you appeared like an answer I didn't know to ask for. So I'm willing to entertain insanity." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Rest. Heal. We'll speak again when you're stronger." He glanced back at her. "And Seraphim?" She startled at the sound of her name, though he had never asked for it. "You're not going to die alone," Gomez said. "Not if I have anything to say about it." He left before she could respond, before he could do something foolish like touch her again, before his wolf could convince him to stay. Behind him, in the healing chambers, Seraphim touched the place where his hand had rested on her shoulder, feeling the echo of that impossible spark. For the first time since the goddess had cast her out, she felt something other than despair. She felt terrified. Chapter 5 The Power the Goddess Feared. The moon goddess didn't cast her out for weakness, but for power. 3 days passed before Seraphim could stand without assistance. 3 days of healing under Mara's watchful care, of eating meals that tasted like ash in her mouth, of lying awake at night in chambers too large yet somehow still too small for her frame. 3 days of pretending she didn't feel the pull toward the Alpha King every time he passed her door. Because he did pass. Every evening, like clockwork, she would hear his footsteps pause outside her chambers. He never entered, never spoke, but his presence lingered like a question waiting to be asked. On the 4th day, Gomez finally knocked. "Come in," Seraphim called, her voice steadier than it had been. He entered with the controlled grace of a predator, filling the doorway in a way that made her acutely aware of how few people ever matched her in size. At 7 feet tall, he was still shorter than her, but his presence was somehow larger, denser, as if gravity itself bent slightly around him. "You're healing well," he observed. "Your healer is skilled." Seraphim sat on the edge of the bed, her posture careful. She had learned long ago how to make herself seem less threatening, less enormous. Old habits were hard to break. "Mara says you've been asking questions. About me. About the curse." She had been, cautiously, fishing for information from the healers who tended her. They were loyal to their alpha but not unkind, and she had learned much. That Gomez had ruled for 15 years with an iron will and surprising fairness. That his curse was killing him slowly, stealing his wolf piece by piece. That the entire kingdom held its breath, waiting for the day their king would fall. "I wanted to understand," she said simply. "You saved my life. I wanted to know why. Because the moment I saw you, my dying wolf woke up." Gomez moved closer, his golden eyes never leaving hers. "Because when I touched you, the curse that has resisted every healer, every spell, every prayer retreated. Because an oracle told me that only forgotten power would save me, and you arrived broken and powerless on my doorstep." "I'm not powerless by choice," Seraphim said, her voice hardening. "The goddess took everything from me." "Did she?" Gomez tilted his head, studying her with unsettling intensity. "Or did she strip away the surface to reveal what lay beneath?" "What are you talking about?" "The moon-touched healing you possessed, that was divine power, correct? A gift from the goddess, channeled through you." "Yes." "Then what you did when you saved those wolf children, that wasn't divine power, was it?" "Because the goddess would never have allowed her gift to heal creatures she deemed unworthy." Seraphim's breath caught. She had never thought about it that way, too consumed by grief and punishment to question the mechanics of what she had done. "When you healed them," Gomez continued, his voice low and intense, "what did you feel?" She closed her eyes, remembering. The dying wolf children, their small bodies broken, their hearts stuttering. The desperate need to save them that had overridden every other thought. And then, "It felt different," she whispered. "The moon-touched healing was always cool, controlled, like water flowing through channels. But when I healed the children, it was warm. Raw. It came from somewhere deeper." She opened her eyes. It hurt. Like I was giving away pieces of myself. "Life-binding," Gomez breathed. "That's not moon-touched healing. That's something older. Something primal. I don't understand." "The ability to bind your own life force to another, to share your vitality, to pull someone back from death by offering yourself as an anchor." His eyes gleamed with recognition. "It's a power so rare that most believe it's only legend. And it's not divine. It's inherent. Born into your blood, not bestowed by any god." Seraphim felt something cold settle in her stomach. "If that's true, then why did I need the moon-touched gift at all?" "Control," Gomez said. "The divine power kept the primal power dormant. Safe. Contained." He paused. "The moon goddess didn't punish you for saving the wolf children. She punished you because in doing so, you revealed what you truly were. Something she couldn't control." The words hung in the air like a sentence. Seraphim wanted to deny them, wanted to believe her goddess had been just, had been righteous. but the pieces fit too perfectly. She was afraid of me, Seraphim said, her voice barely audible. Terrified, Gomez confirmed. So she stripped away your divine power, cast you out, and assumed the elements would finish what she couldn't justify doing herself. But if I have this life-binding power, why can't I feel it? Why haven't I healed myself? Because you're trying to use it the way you use divine power. Cool. Controlled. Safe. Gomez moved closer still, until he was standing directly before her. Life-binding requires something different. It requires connection. Bond. Trust. I don't trust you, Seraphim said, though it felt like a lie even as she spoke it. Then trust yourself. He extended his hand, palm up, an offering. Touch me again. But this time, don't pull away. Seraphim stared at his hand, remembering the spark that had ignited between them before, the way his wolf had surged to life, the way her own hollow chest had felt suddenly full. It had terrified her then. It terrified her now. What if it makes things worse? I'm already dying, Gomez said bluntly. Worse is not a concern. She reached out slowly, her massive hand trembling slightly. The moment before contact, she hesitated. If this works, she said quietly, if I can help you, the goddess will know. She'll see it as defiance. She might. She already cast you out to die, Gomez interrupted. What more can she do? Seraphim couldn't answer that. So instead, she closed the distance and pressed her palm against his chest. The reaction was immediate and violent. Gomez gasped, his body going rigid as his wolf erupted to the surface. His eyes blazed pure gold, his canines elongating, his hands shifting to claws. For a moment Seraphim thought she had hurt him, thought whatever power she carried had caused damage instead of healing. Then she felt it. The curse. She could sense it now, a writhing darkness wrapped around his heart, tendrils of shadow that had burrowed deep into his essence. It recoiled from her touch like a living thing, hissing and twisting as her warmth invaded its territory. And her own power, the life binding that had been dormant and hollow, suddenly roared to life. It was nothing like moon-touched healing. This was fierce and demanding, pulling from the core of her being, from the vitality that made her who she was. She felt herself pouring into him, her life force seeking out the curse, wrapping around it, burning it away with sheer stubborn existence. The darkness fought back. It lashed at her, tried to infect her, tried to use the connection she had created to spread its poison. But Seraphim had spent her entire life being called monstrous, being told she was too much, too large, too powerful. For once, being too much was exactly what was needed. She pushed harder, giving more, letting the life-binding consume her reserves without restraint. Somewhere distant she heard Gomez cry out, felt his wolf thrashing between agony and ecstasy. The curse was being torn apart, and it was taking pieces of both of them with it. But it was working. Seraphim, Gomez gasped, his hand suddenly gripping her wrist. That's enough. You'll kill yourself. She couldn't stop. The power had found its purpose, and it was hungry to complete the work. Seraphim. His voice carried alpha command now, the weight of absolute authority. It broke through her focus enough that she yanked her hand back. The connection severed like a snapped cord, and they both collapsed in opposite directions, gasping for air. For several long moments, neither could speak. Then Gomez laughed. It was a sound of pure, incredulous relief. He looked down at his hands, flexing them, feeling his wolf move beneath his skin with strength that had been absent for months. The darkness was still there, she could sense it, but it was smaller now. Wounded. Contained. You did it, he said, looking at her with something close to awe. You actually did it. Seraphim stared at her own hands, watching them tremble with exhaustion. She felt hollowed out again, but this time it was different. This time she had chosen to give, rather than having it taken. It's not gone, she said. The curse. I heard it, but I didn't destroy it. But you proved it can be hurt. That's more than anyone else has managed. Gomez pulled himself to his feet, then extended his hand to help her up. You're the key, Seraphim. You're what the prophecy meant. She let him help her stand, acutely aware of how his hand felt in hers, warm and solid and alive. The goddess won't forgive this. The goddess cast you out to die alone in the frozen wastes, Gomez said, his voice hard. I'd say you don't owe her any loyalty. It's not about loyalty. It's about survival. If she sees me using this power, if she realizes I'm helping you instead of dying as she decreed, then let her see, Gomez interrupted. Let her see that you're stronger than her curse. That you're more than her cast-off. That you're... What? Seraphim asked. What am I? He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Mine, he said finally. If you'll allow it. The word hung between them, heavy with implication. Not a command. Not a demand. But an offer. I don't even know what that means, Seraphim whispered. Neither do I, Gomez admitted. But we have time to figure it out. If you stay. Seraphim looked around the healing chambers that had become her sanctuary, thought about the frozen wastes outside, about the village that had banished her, about the goddess who had condemned her. Then she looked at Gomez, at this dying king who had saved her for reasons neither of them fully understood, and felt that impossible bond humming between them. I'll stay, she said. For now. It wasn't a declaration of loyalty. It wasn't love or devotion or any of the things stories promised. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, that was enough. Chapter 6, the Alpha who chose the cursed. He didn't kneel to the moon goddess. He knelt to her. The great hall fell silent when Gomez entered with Seraphim at his side. Every wolf in the stronghold had gathered for the morning assembly, as was tradition, to hear their alpha's words and witness pack business. They expected announcements about territory disputes, perhaps news of his health, maybe even preparations for succession. They did not expect the giant cursed girl. Seraphim felt every eye on her as she walked beside Gomez, her footsteps echoing too loud in the sudden quiet. She had tried to refuse this public appearance, had argued that her presence would only create problems. But Gomez had been immovable. If you stay, they need to know why, he had said. Secrets breed suspicion, and suspicion breeds challenge. Now, standing before hundreds of wolves who looked at her with everything from curiosity to outright hostility, Seraphim understood the true weight of her decision to remain. Gomez raised his hand, and the murmuring ceased instantly. His authority was absolute, even weakened as he was. This is Seraphim, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. She arrived in our territory 4 days ago, near death. She has been healed under my order and will remain under Alpha protection. The last 2 words landed like stones in still water, ripples of reaction spreading through the crowd. Alpha protection was not given lightly. It meant the recipient was untouchable, that any harm done to them would be considered a direct challenge to the Alpha himself. My lord, Maddox stood from his place among the senior wolves, his scarred face twisted with barely concealed disdain. With respect, we know nothing of this woman. She bears no pack scent, claims no territory, arrives at our borders like a bad omen. His eyes raked over Seraphim's height with obvious disgust. And she is monstrous in size. Perhaps cursed. Not perhaps, Seraphim said quietly, before Gomez could respond. I am cursed. The moon goddess herself stripped me of my divine gifts and cast me out to die. The hall erupted. Wolves shouted over each other, voices rising in alarm and anger. Cursed by the goddess herself. It was worse than they had imagined. Silence, Gomez commanded, and the authority in his voice made even the most rebellious wolves obey. He turned to face the assembly fully. Yes, she was cast out by the moon goddess. Yes, she carries a divine curse. And yes, I am declaring her under my protection regardless. My lord, this is madness. Thane stepped forward, his loyalty warring with his concern. To harbor someone cursed by the gods invites their wrath upon all of us. The pack. The pack will do as I command, Gomez interrupted, his eyes flashing gold. Or they are welcome to challenge me for leadership. The threat hung in the air. Despite his weakening condition, no one was foolish enough to challenge Gomez directly. But Seraphim could see the calculation in their eyes. the silent assessment of how much longer he would remain strong enough to enforce his will. "There is more," Gomez continued, and something in his tone made the wolves lean forward. "Seraphim possesses a rare healing ability. Life-binding. 4 days ago, I was dying from a curse that your finest healers could not touch. Today, I stand before you stronger than I have been in months." He let that sink in. Seraphim saw understanding dawn on some faces, denial on others. "She did what was impossible," Gomez said. "She wounded the curse that has been killing me. And with time, she may be able to destroy it completely." Vera, the ambitious she-wolf from the southern territories, stood slowly. "If what you say is true, my lord, then she is valuable. A tool to be used for the pack's benefit." Her smile was cold. But alpha protection suggests something more than utility. It suggests favor. The implication was clear. The entire hall understood what Vera was really asking. "I will not discuss my intentions with this assembly," Gomez said flatly. "Seraphim is under my protection. That is all you need to know." "It's not all we need to know," Maddox growled. "We need to know if you intend to bind yourself to an abomination. We need to know if our future Luna will be a creature cursed by the very goddess we honor. We need to know if you've lost your mind along with your wolf." Gomez moved so fast that Seraphim barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he had Maddox pinned against a pillar, forearm across the older wolf's throat. "Question my judgment again," Gomez said softly, dangerously. "I dare you." Maddox's eyes widened, feeling the strength that had returned to his alpha's grip. "My lord, I meant no." "Yes, you did." Gomez released him, letting Maddox collapse to his knees. "But I'll be merciful this once. The pack is uneasy. Change is frightening. I understand." He turned to address them all. "But understand this in return. Seraphim saved my life when all of you had given up hope. She asks for nothing in return. She owes us nothing. And yet she stays, knowing she is unwelcome, knowing she is feared, because I asked her to." He moved back to stand beside Seraphim, and the gesture felt significant in ways she couldn't fully articulate. "If that makes her cursed, then I am cursed alongside her," Gomez declared. "If the goddess wishes to punish me for choosing survival over divine favor, then let her try. I have built this kingdom with my own hands, unified these packs through strength and will, not through cowering before celestial authority. I will not apologize for choosing to live." The hall was utterly silent now. Seraphim felt tears burning behind her eyes, overwhelmed by his defense of her, by the weight of what he was sacrificing simply by letting her stay. "Assembly dismissed," Gomez said. "Return to your duties." The wolves dispersed slowly, throwing glances over their shoulders at Seraphim as they left. Some looked thoughtful. Others looked mutinous. None looked accepting. When the hall had emptied, Seraphim finally allowed herself to breathe. "You shouldn't have done that," she said quietly. "You've made enemies of your own pack for me." "They were already circling," Gomez replied. "At least now they know where I stand." "Where do you stand?" He turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Where do you think?" Before she could answer, his legs buckled. Seraphim caught him, her arms wrapping around his massive frame with surprising ease, lowering him carefully to the ground. "The curse," she breathed, feeling it pulsing in his chest. The confrontation had cost him, burned through the strength she had restored. "It's fighting back, Gomez." Gomez gasped, trying to reclaim lost ground. Seraphim didn't hesitate. She pressed her hand to his chest, letting the life-binding power flow. It came easier this time, the connection between them already established, already hungry to deepen. She felt the curse writhing, felt it trying to spread, and she attacked it with everything she had. The cost was immediate and brutal. Her own vitality drained away like water through a sieve, her vision darkening at the edges, her heart stuttering with exhaustion. But she held on, pouring herself into him, refusing to let the darkness win. "Stop," Gomez commanded, his hand covering hers. "You're killing yourself." "I can do more," she insisted. "No." His grip tightened, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I won't survive by destroying you." The life-binding connection still hummed between them, and through it she could feel his emotions as clearly as her own. Determination. Protectiveness. And underneath it all, something deeper, something that terrified her more than any curse. Affection. Fierce and undeniable. You feel it too, Gomez said. Not a question, but a statement. The bond. The pull. Seraphim wanted to deny it, wanted to claim it was just the life-binding, just the magic creating false intimacy. But she had never been good at lying. It's forbidden, she whispered. I'm cursed by the goddess. You're an alpha king. Whatever this is between us, it can only end in disaster. Then let it end in disaster, Gomez said, his voice rough. I've spent 3 years dying slowly, watching my kingdom prepare for my death, feeling my wolf fade piece by piece. Do you know what that's like? To lose yourself by inches? Yes, Seraphim said, thinking of her divine power being stripped away, of her exile, of dying alone in the snow. I do. Then you understand why I'm willing to risk everything. He pulled himself to his feet, using her for support in a way that should have seemed weak, but somehow didn't. The oracle said forgotten power would restore the crown. She didn't say it would be easy. She didn't say it would be safe. She just said it was possible. I'm not power, Seraphim protested. I'm just everything, Gomez interrupted. You're everything the prophecy promised and nothing like what I expected. He reached up, his hand cupping her face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so fierce. Stay. Not just in the stronghold, but here. With me. Let me protect you the way you're protecting me. The pack will never accept me. They will learn to. Or they will leave. I don't care which. The goddess has already done her worst to you. What more can she take? Seraphim closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite every logical reason not to. My heart, she whispered. She could take my heart. Then we'll make sure she doesn't, Gomez said softly. He stood on his toes, and she bent down, and when their lips met it felt like the most natural and most forbidden thing in the world. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid the other might break. Then the life-binding flared between them, the connection deepening, and gentleness gave way to desperation. They were two cursed souls finding sanctuary in each other. Two outcasts refusing to die alone. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gomez rested his forehead against hers. I don't kneel to gods, he said. But I would kneel to you. Don't, Seraphim said. Don't worship me. Just let me stay. You can stay forever. It was a promise neither of them could keep. They both knew it. The pack was unstable. The curse was wounded but not dead. The goddess was watching, waiting for her moment to strike. But in that moment, standing in the empty great hall with forbidden love burning between them, they chose to believe anyway. Sometimes hope was a rebellion all its own. Chapter 7, when the moon goddess realized her mistake. The moon goddess felt it too late. Her greatest weapon was no longer hers. The transformation happened over 3 weeks, so gradual that even Gomez didn't realize the magnitude of change until he stood before the mirror in his chambers and saw what he had become. Stronger. Not just healed, but enhanced. His muscles carried a density they hadn't possessed even in his prime. His eyes glowed with a golden luminescence that never fully dimmed. His wolf, once dying and whimpering, now prowled beneath his skin with a vitality that made his pack instinctively bow lower when he passed. It's not possible, Mara whispered, examining him with trembling hands. The curse is gone. Completely. Not wounded, not suppressed. Eradicated. She looked up at him with something close to fear. My lord, in all my years of healing, I have never seen a curse this powerful simply vanish. And the strength that's replaced it, it's as if her life force has permanently bonded with yours. Gomez flexed his hand, feeling power sing through every nerve. Can you sense her in me? Mara hesitated, then nodded. Yes. It's faint, but it's there. A warmth that wasn't present before. You're still yourself, still wolf, but there's something else now. Something that tastes of moonlight and defiance. Seraphim, he said, the name both a statement and a prayer. She was the source, the catalyst, the impossible answer. Every night for 3 weeks, she had come to his chambers and performed the life-binding ritual. Each time, she poured more of herself into him, attacking the curse with relentless determination. Each time, the cost to her grew steeper. But something else had been happening too, something neither of them had anticipated. Her power was growing. Gomez found her in the training yard, demonstrating basic healing techniques to a group of skeptical pack members. It was part of their agreement. If she was to stay, she would prove her worth beyond simply healing their alpha. She would serve the pack. Most still viewed her with suspicion, but a few had begun to warm to her. Especially after she had saved young Marcus from a training accident that should have killed him, pulling him back from death's door with a touch of her hand. The key is connection, Seraphim was explaining, her voice patient despite the obvious discomfort of her audience. You must feel their life force, understand where it's weakening, and then offer your own to reinforce it. But you're not Wolf, one of the younger females challenged. How can we learn from someone who isn't one of us? Seraphim's expression remained calm, though Gomez saw the flicker of pain in her eyes. You're right. I'm not Wolf. But life force is life force, regardless of what form it takes. The principles remain the same. Show us again, Thane said, stepping forward with a gash on his arm from morning drills. Prove it works. It was a test, Gomez knew. Thane was loyal, but he needed to see consistent results before he would fully accept Seraphim's presence. The others watched intently as Seraphim placed her hand over the wound. What happened next made even Gomez straighten in surprise. Light erupted from Seraphim's palm. Not the gentle silver glow of moon-touched healing, but something brighter, fiercer. White gold radiance that seemed to contain all the colors of sunrise. The wound on Thane's arm didn't just close. It vanished entirely, leaving skin that looked healthier than the surrounding flesh, as if she had turned back time itself. Thane stared at his arm, then at Seraphim, his expression caught between awe and alarm. What was that? He breathed. Seraphim looked at her own hand, and Gomez saw genuine confusion on her face. I don't know. It felt different. Stronger. It was beautiful, young Marcus said, his eyes wide. It was terrifying, Maddox corrected, watching from the shadows. That wasn't natural healing. That was something else. Gomez dismissed the training session with a gesture, waiting until the yard cleared before approaching Seraphim. She was still staring at her hands, turning them over as if they belonged to someone else. How long has this been happening? He asked quietly. 3 days. At first I thought I was imagining it, that I was just getting better at controlling the life binding. She looked up at him. But it's not control. It's power. Raw, unfiltered power that I shouldn't have. The goddess took my gifts. Why would new ones emerge? Because you're not using her power anymore, Gomez said, understanding dawning. The divine healing she gave you, that was controlled, limited, safely contained within boundaries she approved. But the life binding is yours. Born into your blood. And without the divine power suppressing it. It's evolving, Seraphim finished, her voice barely a whisper. They stood in silence, both grasping the implications. If Seraphim's inherent power was growing beyond what even she could fully control, if it was developing into something that transcended divine blessing, then she was becoming something unprecedented. Something dangerous. That night, as the full moon rose over the stronghold, the moon goddess finally noticed what she had lost. Seraphim woke from sleep with a gasp, clutching her chest. Gomez was beside her instantly, his instincts pulling him from his own chambers to hers before conscious thought caught up. What's wrong? He demanded. She's watching, Seraphim said, her eyes wide with primal fear. I can feel her. She's looking at me, and She trailed off, trembling. She's what? Furious. And afraid. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees in an instant. Frost spread across the windows in intricate patterns that formed words in the old divine script. You were meant to die. Gomez moved to stand between Seraphim and the window, his wolf surging to the surface. She'll have to go through me. More frost, more words. You cannot protect an abomination, Alpha. I gave her power and I took it away. She exists only by my mercy. Your mercy. Seraphim stood, her fear transforming into something harder. You cast me out to die alone in the frozen wastes. You condemned me for showing compassion. You stripped away everything I was because you were afraid of what I might become. The room shook. Wind howled through cracks that shouldn't exist. The voice of the moon goddess filled the air, cold and infinite. I was right to fear you. Look what you have become. Look what you are becoming. Then you should have killed me when you had the chance, Seraphim said, and Gomez felt power radiating from her in waves. The white gold light was back, surrounding her like an aura, pushing back against the divine cold. I will correct my mistake. The frost words melted away, replaced by a final message. 7 days. In 7 days, I will descend. I will reclaim what is mine, destroy what is not, and remind all who witness why gods are to be feared. Alpha King, your choice is simple. Surrender the abomination or stand against divinity itself. Then the presence withdrew, leaving only silence and the lingering scent of moonflowers. Gomez turned to Seraphim, seeing the terror and determination warring in her expression. You should run. Leave tonight. I'll give you supplies, a head start, anything you need. No. Seraphim. No, she repeated, her voice stronger. I'm done running. I'm done being what the goddess wants me to be. If she wants to destroy me, she can try. But I won't make it easy. This is a war you can't win. She's a goddess. And I'm whatever she was afraid I'd become. Seraphim stepped forward, taking his hands in hers. You stood before your entire pack and declared me under your protection. You defied tradition, risked rebellion, sacrificed political stability, all for someone you barely knew. If you can be that brave, then so can I. Bravery and stupidity often look the same, Gomez said, but he was smiling despite the fear clawing at his chest. Then we'll be stupid together. She pulled him closer, and the life-binding connection flared between them, stronger than ever. Besides, you need me. If the goddess comes for me, she'll come for you too. You're infected with my power now. Changed by it. Do you really think she'll let that stand? She was right. He could feel it in his bones, in his strengthened wolf, in every part of him that had been touched by her life force. He was no longer purely what he had been. He was something new, something that existed outside the goddess's design. 7 days, he said. We have 7 days to prepare. To prepare for what? How do you fight a goddess? Gomez looked at her, at this giant girl who had been cast out to die, but had instead become the power that could heal the unhealable, who glowed with light that rivaled the moon itself, who had somehow, impossibly, made him believe in something beyond survival. The same way we've fought everything else, he said. Together. With everything we have. Until the very end. Seraphim nodded, and in her eyes he saw not just acceptance, but something fiercer. Defiance. The same quality that had made her save dying wolf children despite divine law. The same quality that had kept her alive in the frozen wastes. The same quality that now made her glow with power that terrified gods. She was right to cast me out, Seraphim said quietly, her light growing brighter. Not because I was an abomination, but because she saw the truth. What truth? That her greatest weapon was never the power she gave me. Seraphim looked down at her hands, at the white gold radiance that pulsed with her heartbeat. It was always what I carried in my blood. What she could never control. What she tried to bury by burying me. She looked up at Gomez, and her eyes blazed with the same light. She was cast out to die, he said, understanding flooding through him. But she rose as the power that could end a goddess. The words hung in the air like a prophecy. In 7 days, they would learn if prophecies could be fulfilled, or if they were simply beautiful lies told to the desperate. Either way, neither of them would face it alone.